Welcome to the Screen the Screener College Basketball Podcast with your hosts, Mike Randall and Gus Kearns.
Welcome in, listeners, to the Screen the Screener College Basketball Podcast, where we're always talking everything college hoops. You could have been anywhere else on the dial, but you chose to be here with us, Mike and Gus. And finally, we found our way back together. Mike, so nice to be talking college hoops with you. We've both been busy with a couple of different things, but it's nice to reconnect here. And it seems like we have a couple of games that we might need to run down because there's been a lot of action over the college basketball landscape now that conference play has begun.
Yeah, Gus, I'm sitting here with S'mores, my dog, on my lap, okay? And obviously Gus we had to postpone taping this, so Gus is kind enough to not be watching the start of Gonzaga San Francisco right now, which I know is driving him crazy.
It's okay.
But that's the type of guy Gus is, folks. I was on a heater with picks. I mean, just like 30 units over the last month. And I've been a battle. It's been a little Rocky Balboa because, Gus, you have to be a special sort of team to cover points on the road in a conference game. I mean, tonight, Purdue, I know Indiana hasn't beaten them since the Carter administration. Trace Jackson-Davis does relatively nothing. And all of a sudden, Rob Finney in his 12th year at Indiana is banging shots. So it's at the point where, Gus, I see a line and I see a team that is playing and is favored on the road in any conference. Pac-12, Oregon just smacked everybody around right over last week. You have to give me a reason to not pick the home dog. Yeah, that's where I'm at because I'm done getting it wrong. I'm done getting it wrong every time.
This is where the truth is usually told within conference play. Everybody went out and got their opportunity in the non-conference, or if they went to an invitational somewhere and they might have obtained their big win, and now you're back in the grind. Like, we always kid around with the Big East, like the Big East is a grind, because it's true. But every conference has its own individual grind. And once you go on the road and you know there's fans now there, so the home court maybe, what do you think? Maybe was half a point less last year with no crowd, maybe something in that area?
That's an excellent way to say it. Oh, my goodness. I mean, I know UMass. I hate UMass.
Right.
I thought St. Louis could take care of business. I know UMass makes threes. I get it. Noah Fernandez has 8 of them, whatever he had tonight. I understand that. But someone's got to be able to cover on the road besides anyone who goes and plays at Memphis. There's the Penny Hardaway thing.
Leave Penny out of this. Come on.
I had a rough night. Guys, I put it on Twitter. He had getting mad at people. These are 17, 18-year-old kids. Well, hold it, Penny. Hold it. You're all excited about your preseason ranking with the recruits and the smoke that comes. Remember that? I'll take all the smoke.
Give me a little smoke.
Little smoke right now because Jankovic, who's had a hotter seat with smoke than anyone in the country, just came in and whipped your fanny. So I don't want to hear about the 17, 18-year-old kids. I'm turning to Mad Dog again. Here we go.
Well, Kendrick Davis also had something to do with that.
Yes.
He's playing like one of the best point guards in the country.
Absolutely.
And I think if you are going to lean one way with a favorite on the road, or picking a team on the road, then you have to have that player on the roster that's been through that battle and been in that gym and knows what that atmosphere is like, just like Kendrick Davis.
Even last night, I thought the 7 was way too much with Texas A&M and Kentucky. Buzz has done a good job. They've won. They've had some big wins. But Kentucky wins by 6. It's very hard, Gus, to cover on the road. Rutgers, Iowa, no shot. Easy one last night. You have to say, I think you have to default to, I'm taking the underdog at home. Give me, you have to be like, give me the Lakers of the 80s. It's got to be something that really makes me say, wow, because it's really hard.
And then another thing you have to keep in mind, too, there is this larger sample size that Vegas now has to consume as well. So they've made their adjustments accordingly to the lines that maybe would be a little bit out of whack and stand out to you and I and the listeners that are really going to pay attention to this early on in the season. And now those adjustments are made. And so those lines that you would kind of be on the lookout for and be like, all right, this one's a little odd, this one's a little fishy. Like, those are harder to identify now.
Yeah, the days of Western Illinois getting too many points are gone, my friend. They really
the correction is made.
We're left with being really excited about getting Appalachian State and 3 at Georgia State. You know what I mean? Like that's what we're really hunting, bro. We're really hunting.
There's nothing wrong with a little App State. I'm down with that.
Very few can cover on the road. Very few. I'm going back here. I'm looking. Who can cover on the road? Iona couldn't cover at Monmouth, even though Monmouth was just taken to the woodshed by Marist. This is what we're dealing with.
Yeah, I think that result that we're going to isolate right there, that was very odd because the Marist result with Monmouth, obviously that was the classic look-ahead game. But then once you run into overtime, that type of bet goes out the window. I mean, it's impossible once the game goes to overtime to say like, oh yeah, I had that figured out. No, it's just whoever has the best 5 minutes. So it's not a 40-minute game. It's now a 5-minute game. Somebody gets hot, hits a couple threes, a couple defensive stances. Miss some free throws, boom. That number gets ugly in a hurry in overtime. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, very, very true.
When one of the teams that couldn't hold serve with a little bit of a favor on the road was Duke and Florida State. This Florida State overtime thing, it's a little bit magical. And this just plays right into, your commentary earlier in the podcast that why not just stick with the home team here? What's one thing that stood out to you either on the Duke side or on the Florida State side from this great win for Florida State and tough loss on the road for Duke?
It just looked to me, man, like Florida State had won. I mean, we look up and I feel like they were disappointing because they lost 3 in a row. They lost Purdue, tough game, Syracuse, tough game, and then semi-away to South Carolina. But like after that, they did win 2, but then they lost at Wake Forest. But people don't realize Wake Forest is good. Fine. But without, going into the game, I didn't give them much of a chance, but they have won 5 in a row. They are 12-5 on the season. They are 5-2. Yes, they finally couldn't beat Florida for the first time ever. Okay, fine. But I don't think their year has been as bad as I thought it was. Duke is Duke. We have seen it before. This team is going to be very good. They're going to have a solid record, 14-3, 4-2 in the ACC. But Gus, the question is out whether Mike Krzyzewski can get these freshman kids together and get them to a Final Four level talent playing field. Right, I don't know if he is the right guy for that. I don't. It's all about not your shot, it's our shot. Okay, great. I've talked about that a million times. But that is the question. It's fine. Duke will have a solid year. They beat Virginia Tech home. They beat Georgia Tech home. Those are frisky. Yeah. Wake Forest away. That's a nice win. Nice win by 12. NC State home. Okay. But they're not great against the spread. Their metrics look good. But how come, Gus, if you asked me to pick a team, whether they're making the Final Four or not, I'd say no.
I think if you're, putting together a list of teams that can either win the whole thing or make the Final Four, obviously the number of spots on that list changes and alters with what you're looking for. But yeah, I think there are a couple of holes with this Duke team. But the pieces on the roster seem to fit really well. Like the tandem of Williams and John in the middle, that is like one of the best, post tandems that we're going to find in our sport. Both of those guys doing different things, but both of them being productive for the team. And look, if Paolo is going to play at this All-America level, then they have a shot to do the Final Four thing or win the whole thing. If he's going to be ordinary and, sweat out 7 pounds and have to sit during a crucial point in the game, that's where you get picked off, before you get to the Sweet 16. Is Trevor Keels great? I don't know. Maybe he's a little bit of Quentin Grimes from a couple of years ago where he comes out, has that great game, and everybody's going to put him on an All-America team, and now he's kind of ordinary again. He's, the correction has come. So you have to ask yourself, do you trust more Griffin and Keels to play Robin to, Paolo's Batman? And is Paolo's Batman really that impactful?
You said it perfectly. Listen, Keels looked tremendous against Kentucky in opening night. He had 18, looked really nice against Gardner-Webb at home. I know it's Gardner-Webb, he still looked good. And then he's around 10, 9, 11, 10, 9 points. And the turnovers are always high with freshmen, 3, 2, and 2 consecutive games. The issue is, as college basketball fans, we want to start handicapping. We want to start getting the Wisconsin from years ago with Kaminsky.
Right.
And you want to start saying, look, this team's making it. Okay. And I think what happens, Gus, is we're going to get a cluster of teams that we really like, and it's going to come down to the matchups. It always comes down to the
Always.
matchups. So years ago, man, maybe a decade ago when we were hanging with Dr. Tony, we used to be able to say, oh, Louisville, Russ Smith, it doesn't exist. Duke could absolutely lose in the opening round to a mid-major team. Or they can make the Final Four. It's going to come down to the matchups. I don't see dominance.
I totally agreed. And we pointed out the inconsistencies with the freshmen. And then Florida State obviously has some of that, with Cleveland. And I think that is also the wild card is, are those talented freshmen going to play up to snuff and play at a really high level, or are they going to falter back to that inconsistency? So I think that's the thing with Florida State. Another team that was favored then gets toppled. We got Kansas State somehow taking down Texas, which seemed borderline unfathomable. It makes no sense. Mike, is this more about Kansas State just being scrappy and reaching for those couple of wins that they can garner within a really tough conference? Or does this say more about Texas and their roles really not being defined, and maybe they're still trying to figure out and put their Rubik's Cube and align the colors?
Just to prove to you, my brother, that I am objective. Ready for this? I think Chris Beard is kind of learning what Shaka Smart knew. And as much as I was ripping on Shaka in Texas, this isn't the easiest place to coach. First off, they are very limited side. They got destroyed by Gonzaga, by Drew Timme. But we just classified that as it's Drew Timme, okay? Right. Well, a lot of other teams have been able to do a better job, maybe not stop Timme, but a better job than Texas did. They are not good without Trey Mitchell, UMass transfer, thank you very much.
Right.
And they have lost 3 out of 4. They lost at Oak State, okay. They lost at Iowa State, okay. Now they lose at home to Kansas State. That's going to raise an eyebrow. Their metrics are solid, but they play at a snail's pace. Their defense is not at the level that it was in Texas Tech. This was a desperate Kansas State team. Texas is a big question mark for me now. I mean, they're going to have to go on the road. They got to play West Virginia away. Baylor, we're going to talk about. Kansas.
Right.
So I think Bruce Weber is doing a decent job. His seat is as hot as Jankovic's is in SMU.
Absolutely.
They're never happy down there. They lost 4 in a row. They thought they had him run out. Now he beats Texas Tech and Texas back-to-back. So, Weber just keeps, as John Malkovich says, hanging around. That's what he's doing. He's got a solid team. They're great at defending the three-pointer, 5th best in the country at defending the arc. Great job by them.
Yep.
And so, I think it says good job by Kansas State. You guys are really gritty. Very happy for you. And Chris Beard is going through the struggles that maybe Shaka saw. And Shaka, by the way, separate note, has found a home and has a team that emulates his VCU team. And they're killing it. So I don't know. Maybe it's a little bit of both, but I'm sort of worried about Texas.
I'm a little worried about Texas too. You mentioned Trey Mitchell, and he would be the one piece of resistance that Texas can offer on the interior and at the rim. And if he's only going to play 11 minutes in a game against Kansas State, then why is he there? And then I think the other part that you have to ask yourself if you're following Texas and maybe thinking about investing in them is, which one of those guards is going to be the alpha? I think we all thought it was going to be Marcus Carr, but is it going to be Jones? Is it going to be Ramey? Could you include Askew in that equation as well? So which one of those guys is going to be the alpha guard that is going to take care of the ball in a crucial moment? We know that Carr is probably going to get that shot in the crucial moment, but maybe, and this has been mentioned before, maybe those players don't know what to do in that crucial moment.
Yeah, and what about the fact about that rumor that was on social media that Marcus Carr isn't happy, he's going to transfer, and then everybody shuts it down? I mean, he drops 25 against Kansas State, but they don't win. Right. But Marcus Carr, big-time scorer finisher at Minnesota, gives you 4 at Oak State, gives you 9 against Oklahoma. That's not why you got him there. Couple 2s earlier in the year. Marcus Carr needs to step up because Chris Beard's teams are going to struggle on offense. And look, I don't think you can center your offense around a UMass transfer. I like Trey Mitchell.
Right.
But, I mean, let's just be careful here. How many times, Gus, have you seen a player from a weaker conference transfer up and dominate? It's hard to do.
Absolutely.
All due respect to Philandros Fleming, my guy, who's been solid at Florida, but he's not option 1 or 2. So I feel like they really rely on Mitchell, which could be a mistake. Marcus Carr, you in the Big Ten, man, you got to post at least 15 points a game for them.
Here's another thing about Marcus Carr. Texas isn't Minnesota. You can't make your living off of making 2 game-winning shots a year and then having that enormous upset, whether it be over an Ohio State or a Purdue, and then that's your season. When you're at Texas, that's every game. He has that pedigree of being a big shot maker and putting up big numbers, but it's got to be every night inside this conference on this team as this lead guard.
We've played 5 minutes in the kennel. Combined points scored by Timmy Holmgren and Rasir Bolton is 0. It's 8-2 San Francisco. You're telling me Chris Beard? I mean, Drew Timme had a double-double at this point against them. I mean, this is my point, is I think other people have figured stuff out, and Beard with that team, it's just not clicking for me yet. It could at the end of the year, of course, but it's not clicking yet.
Agreed. Okay, how about Baylor? Baylor's a tough one to figure out as well, Mike. They take 2 losses, then they go to West Virginia, and then they don't have James Akinjo, their leading scorer. We won't say best player, but their leading scorer. And then they go ahead and obtain this win against West Virginia after coming off 2 losses where they look kind of brutal. Cryer plays really well. Flagler continues to do his thing. And then Mayer goes for his season-high 20. And they didn't really get anything from their really talented freshman, Brown, who only had 2 points. So there was a lot of things in this game that didn't make sense. Mike, what did you take from this Baylor win after the 2 losses?
A couple things. First off, I was impressed with Baylor. The issue with West Virginia is the same every year. They can't make shots when they need to. So Baylor's zone really caused them problems. They have a lot of pressure on a guy like Taz Sherman to score. Baylor hit big shots. I saw Matthew Mayer hit 3 threes in a row or 3 deep shots in a row. Flagler was off. Cryer attacked the basket, did some really nice stuff for them. They are an issue because they're good shot makers. They are really, really good shot makers, which is tough in a close game. On the other side for West Virginia, Malik Curry has got some and one mixtape in him. And I think he has to take a much larger role in this team. McNeil is good. He makes threes. He's kind of stationary to a certain extent. It goes around Taz Sherman. What would happen is they needed somebody to score, and they couldn't find anyone to do it. That was the problem. That was the issue in the game. And I can see West Virginia running into that, and that is why historically, man, how many times have they been a 3 or a 5 seed and they've been upset? Because they do run into these streaks where they cannot score late in games. And that's what happened here because they were winning this game with 5 minutes left.
Agreed. And I think that West Virginia definitely needs that complementary score. It needs to be either on the wing or it needs to be as a complementary piece to their starting guards. And yes, that I agree that Curry could be that guy. He has a little wiggle to his game. He can shoot it a little bit. He's active, as we like to say. He's active. And I think the other thing, Baylor, if you're going to lose your leading scorer, obviously that goes back to culture. And the culture that they have there, they're the defending national champions, next man up type of thing. But they were like, okay, yeah, no problem. And I think this is going to work for them.
West Virginia's going to be there because Huggins does a great job. Baylor much better than I thought they would be. Gus, I still think they're going to slide at some point. I just think they lost too much. And listen, we've seen the best players leave and the team gets better. I just think the slide is coming. I have a very Michigan feel to Baylor for me. It may not happen yet, but I think there's going to be a time when they really struggle for a couple games in a row when they're at full strength. But West Virginia doesn't have the scoring to do it. And they made shots down the stretch. Really
True.
Impressive win on the road.
True. I think that Baylor might run into that scoring problem at some point again. Just because if you take a look at what they had last year, they just had some of the best shooters that, they had a lottery pick in Mitchell and what the things that they relied on were there every game. I don't know if that reliability is there every game for Baylor this year. Are they a great team? Yes. Should they be in the conversation to make a Final Four again? Absolutely. But maybe they're down a tiny bit if Brown doesn't play up to his potential like this past game.
Nailed it. Yep.
Let's go to Kansas and Oklahoma. This was a really tight game the entire way. Final possession game. Jalen Wilson kind of found himself after playing kind of pedestrian for the past couple of games, and that was very much needed because Ochai Agbaji didn't do much until the final 5 minutes of this game. Christian Braun dunked on somebody and made a 3. You can lock that up pretty much every game. He's going to throw a nasty dunk down, and he's going to make a 3 in your eye, and it just so happened the 3 that he made here was to win the game in the final seconds on the final possession for Kansas. I kind of am into Oklahoma with Tanner Groves kind of being like that Cam Krutwig position in Oklahoma's offense, but I think I think that they lack a tiny bit of shot making surrounding him. I don't know if they have the consistent shooting around him, but they're interesting, and I think they're not going to get cheated on each one of their efforts inside the Big 12.
Yeah, they're not. And what I love about Kansas is on the road, Gus, with Kansas, they do their thing. They cover against the spread. They always are tough. I think it's 60% in the last 7 years on the road as a favorite, Bill Self. I laid the 3.5, got killed by the hook. Braun hit the big three at the end.
Yeah.
Abaji is a shot maker. He is not a guy who's posting 20, 25 points a game, and he kind of flakes in and out. But he is a shot maker. My mistake with this game is I thought Porter Moser, first time going against Kansas, going to struggle a little bit. And maybe they did, but they battled. They were gritty, and they usually have a decent amount of turnovers. They were better in this game. They got after it on defense. He's an excellent coach. Oklahoma with a home run hire of him. So Oklahoma going to be a problem all year on the road. But don't look now. Kansas, they have issues with Remy Martin. He's injured. He's not playing well. Whatever you want to say the issue is, but don't look now. They are again atop the Big 12 at 4.5 game ahead of Baylor. So good win by Self, however you want to slice it.
I agree. Self gets it done again. And I think the Remy Martin element to Kansas is then canceled out by Joseph Yesufu, who is also there from Drake. So I think their karmas kind of cancel each other out. So I think we're okay. I think Kansas is in a good spot. Mike,
yeah, and the underlying theme there is Self's not going to deal with these turnovers that Remy Martin used to. That I don't know how Bobby Hurley still has a job. He has really struggled at Arizona State, but he gave Remy Martin free rein to do whatever the hell he wants. Bill Self's not doing that, so Remy Martin's struggling, but he's still a guy who can make a big shot at the end of the game. They have him. They have Abaji. It's an issue.
Yeah, they do have shot makers, like you said. All right, can we explain Houston? Like, what in the world is how are they doing this without all of their roster pieces? They continue to dominate and they continue to rack up the wins. They're one of those teams that we just kind of have to put into the conversation. Like, yeah, they're going to be top 20. Yeah, they're going to be in the conversation for Final Four. Yeah, they're going to be in the conversation for one of the best teams in the country again, even with the roster turnover they have from last year and within this season.
I thought they were going to go on a slide, and they haven't. I was totally wrong. 16-2, 5-0 in the AAC. I mean, full disclosure, man, they're in an easier conference. I don't know if they were in the Big 12 or the SEC. They'd be having the same success. But kudos to Kelvin Sampson. He's got a style, and it's next man up. They end up losing Tremont Mark, no problem, next man up. They end up having an injury, Marcus Sasser, no problem, next man up. And they just keep filling it, and he has been able to unsolve the Josh Carlton mystery inside.
Yep.
Fabian White has done some nice things. Guys just step in. They are 5-0 in the AAC. They are a half a game ahead of SMU. I don't even know where Memphis is. Can't even find them. So Houston, and he's done a really great job. He beat Tulsa away. That's never easy. They won by 2. Tulsa's always played them tough.
Yep.
And he's taking care of business. In the non-conference, they played Oregon, Wisconsin. That was a game Wisconsin was scalding hot in the first half.
Correct.
Houston almost came back and beat them. So they're just like a bad half away from basically being 17-1, only lost away at Alabama by 1 when they knocked everything over with the trash on the way out. So, yeah, Kelvin Sampson doing it again. He's got a style. They stick to it. And with a couple breaks, man, they could be 18-0.
They could be the number 1 team in the country. There's no doubt. Yeah.
Yes.
And I think an underrated part of Coach Sampson's success is the ability to tap into each one of these transfers.
Mm-hmm.
He has these transfers, whether it be high level, for, like you mentioned, from UConn or from Kansas, and they come there and they are not coming there to get numbers. They're coming there to get better.
Sure.
So that's a big difference. And they're coming there to get better and accumulate wins. They're not getting there to get better and accumulate stats. So I think the fact that he has that culture embedded there in Houston, I don't think he's going anywhere fast.
Yeah, that's very true. He's done an excellent job. He has a style. They love him. Good for him. It's for a guy who gets players to stay and does not go with the one and done. I love to see it.
Yeah, always. And the team that, it is in the number one conversation now. Like Auburn just rolls it up again. I have a couple thoughts on Auburn, but where are you at with them? Are you including them into that conversation, or are they just happen to be the latest team not to lose, and thus they, kind of morph into that number one seeding or that number one ranking? Where are you at with Auburn?
Oh no, Auburn's legit.
Yeah.
Auburn's legit. They've had some real big battles here. LSU, Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia. They've come forward each and every time, and they could be undefeated. Gus, we've talked about that. They are top 16 in the country in offense. They're top 10 in defense.
Yep.
Jabari Smith could be like a number one in the top 3 pick. They hold opponents inside the arc to 43%. They're great on blocks. They force turnovers. They don't turn the ball over themselves. I think sort of the underrated guy who on this team has been Wendell Green, who's hit some big shots. He controls the offense. He lets everyone flow on the wing, gets the ball to Smith, gets the ball to Kessler inside. God bless him. Transfer from North Carolina, right, has really fit in perfectly. Woo. And Bruce Pearl has done a really great job. No, I think they're legit. I cannot wait till Saturday when they play Kentucky at home. Right now it's Auburn favored by 3. Get your popcorn ready. A great matchup.
That might be one of the best games of the year. I mean, we've had some they were involved with one of the best games of the year already, Auburn and UConn. And then you want to include that UConn Seton Hall overtime game as one of the best games of the year.
Oh, yeah. Sure.
But I'm telling you right now, that Auburn Kentucky game is going to have all the hype, and all the hype around it is justified. My thoughts quickly on Auburn is I'm with you. They're legit. They're there. They belong in that conversation, maybe even the top part of the conversation. Kessler is an absolute terror on defense around the rim. He is not only does he block a ton of shots, he alters many others. So that's where that low field goal percentage inside the arc for opponents comes from. It starts with him, but then it also spills out to Smith. Smith gets his share of blocks and steals, and I'm with you. Like if you're having the number 1, 2, or 3 pick, I think any one of those spots you might take him. And if he's going to shoot it this nicely from 3. It'd be hard to pass on him because he just kind of has the whole package defensively. He can guard up and down the lineup. I really like him. And then let's not forget, like they just got Flanagan back, and they still have the Cambridge. And like you said, Green, like really impactful player off the bench currently. And Zeb Jasper, it totally does his thing and is a little pain in the tuchus. And let's not forget Johnson. Johnson brings the ball to the rim hard. Like very hard. They have tons of great pieces. They are totally legit. I'm with you on that. I'm in full agreement. Stop. They are one of the best teams in the nation and should be in the conversation for Final Four or winning the whole darn thing.
After what happened with Pearl, I mean, really, that whole thing. Remember, I told you I was teaching CCD. Kyle guy makes the 3 shots. They were robbed of really getting to a final game, if you want to look at it that way. But right. He has done a great job. Had the whole show cause thing. He has found a home in Auburn.
No doubt. I don't think they're so pleased that he is a head coach of basketball at Auburn. Mike, Big East, always a grind. Marquette wins at Nova. And you mentioned and alluded to Shaka Smart earlier in the podcast, and he has this team rolling. And one of the reasons he has this team rolling is because of Jalen Wilson. Jalen Wilson is playing like one of the best players inside the Big East. And talk about shot making. This guy, he just makes big shot after big shot. And not only like shot, that final play on the 3-point make against Villanova, he made a great basketball play as well. Like he picked up a fumble, got his feet set, good follow through, guarded. There's a lot of little things that he did right there on that final play. It just wasn't banging home a 3 to make, to win the game like Braun. He had to do a lot of other little things in that little play. And so I love what he's doing, and I'm down with Shaka Smart. I'm down with him being an impactful coach and Marquette then being on the radar again inside the Big East. It's kind of exciting.
They've done a wonderful job. I doubted them early in the season, and I should not have.
Right.
Wins in a row, Gus. Illinois, Mississippi, and West Virginia. That's all there is to it. Lately, they've won 5 games in a row. They started 0-3 in conference. I'm like, oh, here they go. Xavier, Connecticut, Creighton. All of a sudden, beat Providence, Georgetown, DePaul, Seton Hall, and Nova by 3 away.
Right.
The issue for me with Nova is they have no depth. They have no depth on the team. They had all the veterans come back. They have no depth whatsoever, and they are really, really struggling here. So they have Moore, Gillespie, Dixon, Slater, Samuels. That's great. Caleb Daniels plays a little bit, but that is it. And they're getting tired, and they're keeping a slow pace, and they're not able to take advantage of situations that they can. They're getting beat on the boards. In this game, Marquette ended up having 26 defensive rebounds, only 2 offensive rebounds, but they still won the game. Why? 13 to 29 from three-point range.
Yeah, they really shot the ball well. They shot the ball well from the line. Low turnovers. And I was coming around on Villanova because I thought Gillespie was kind of getting healthier, right? And I felt like he was maybe finding his form because it looked like he was just a step slow, a step off. He didn't have the same wiggle that he had. Everything seemed really labored on his end. And I felt like the last couple of games, he's kind of shown a little bit of his old self, which was, an all Big East type player, player of the year inside the conference preseason. So I was like, okay, here comes Villanova. And then boom, this game happened. So I don't know where I'm at with Villanova, but I'll tell you what, I'm in on Marquette being a threat. Any game, anywhere inside the Big East, whether they're at home in Fiserv Forum or if they're on the road in the Big East.
Yeah, still 6-2 in conference behind Providence, who's 5-1. That got through the COVID issue. Marquette hanging around at 5-3. So Nova's still battling at 6-2 here, but the depth has become a problem. They lost away at Baylor, away at Creighton. That's fine, but now they lose at home to Marquette. I think it's a get-right spot against Georgetown, no problem. Then they get to Paul, St. John's. Maybe they get a couple wins. Then they get payback on February 2nd away at Marquette.
That's going to be a good game, too. I'm totally looking forward to that. All right, Mike, let's go to Kentucky. We mentioned Kentucky has the big showdown this weekend with Auburn. Either one of those teams could have got caught in, the look-ahead game. They hold on for dear life against Texas A&M. And you mentioned Buzz is doing a great job there. Mike, same question I guess we had with Auburn. Where are you with Kentucky, and do you feel like they should be included in that conversation, or are you going to pick a couple holes in them?
No, I think Kentucky will win the whole thing. I love it. I think Cal's got one of his best teams since he had that legendary team years ago. Sheboy's a star. He's playing at a first-team All-American level.
Yep.
Ty-Ty's been fantastic. Xavier Wheeler as well. He got hurt. He's coming back. They have depth. They'll always get better shooting. Davion Mintz is the glue that holds the team together. Mm-hmm. I love Kentucky. All you got to do is just win, baby, on the road. They did against Texas A&M. I don't care how it looked. They are a legit national title contender.
I agree with you that they are a legit national title contender. I also feel like that if Grady can just shoot the ball at the level, not score the ball, but shoot the ball at the level that he did at Davidson, then they should be included in that conversation. And if Ty Washington can continue to play impactful minutes as the lead guard on this team, I think that pays dividends as well. And you mentioned the lack of depth with Villanova. Kentucky is stacked with it. They have Toppin and Mintz coming off the bench playing important minutes, and both of those guys are impactful players and would be starters on any other SEC team, bar maybe Auburn. That's about it. But they would be starters, and they're coming off the bench playing important minutes. So I agree with you. I think this Kentucky team is one of those teams that we can include in the conversation for sure.
Yeah, Grady is one of those few guys that have stepped up in class and has really performed. I mean, he's the type of guy who can hit a game-winning shot to send them to the Final Four.
Let's go back to the Big East. You got Xavier holding off a desperate DePaul team without their big star. Are we sleeping on Xavier a little bit? Could they be one of those teams that challenges Nova inside the Big East? Do you feel like they have the cards? They haven't straightened out yet? Is Travis Steele, kind of steering the ship for Xavier the right way?
No, I'm not buying Xavier. I think they'll do a nice job this year. I'm not buying them as a legitimate contender. They lost away at DePaul. No Javon Freeman Liberty. You can't. Right. I mean, I apologize. They won away at DePaul. Right. No Javon Freeman Liberty. They barely squeaked that game out. They beat Creighton at home. I don't buy Xavier. I just don't. That game, everyone picked Xavier going against Villanova, and then everybody sent around the shot quality luck factor, how their Xavier pick should have been the right pick there the second time around. Guys, you've lost. Villanova dominated them from start to finish. I think they're a tad worse. I don't expect them to win at Marquette on Sunday. I don't like Xavier. They're fine. I mean, I don't put them in the. I don't think they're winning the Big East, and I don't put them in the Big East tournament champion type team. I don't.
I think they're interesting with Nnaji and Fremantle. I think if they They have post presence there. And if they ever play them together, I think that's kind of interesting. So I'm interested by Xavier, but I'm with you. I don't know if I'm buying in on them being one of the top challengers. Alabama definitely shows its true colors and needed that win against LSU. Alabama had been struggling a little bit, falling out of the rankings after, garnering one of the most important wins of their season against Gonzaga. And LSU did have some roster issues. They lost their starting point guard, and then they lost Darius Days inside the game. So they were trying to piece it together. So what do you take from this Alabama-LSU game? Do you feel like LSU's defense is for real, and do you feel like Alabama is a legit top 25 team?
Yeah, strong ass offer, Will Wade. I've been waiting to poke holes in Will Wade, but I can't. He's been banged up the last two games, like you said. Arkansas at home, Alabama away, but they found a way to be competitive in both games. I like the win over Florida. I like the win over Tennessee. They did beat Kentucky at home. That's the biggest win. And their defense, for the first time, Will Wade has been tremendous with his defense. Absolutely outstanding. They're number one in the country in adjusted defensive efficiency, number one in effective field goal percentage. They turn teams over at a top 5 rate, and they're holding teams 26% from 3-point range.
Right. That I can't quite wrap my head around how they went from 2 years ago being this team that was in the 90s or maybe even the hundreds defensively to one of the top 3 defensive teams this year. I mean, that turnaround defensively is unbelievable and maybe unprecedented as far as changing the definition of how your team is going to find success. Really impressive stuff. And yeah, you're waiting to poke holes and make fun or find something to, laugh over with Will Wade. But no, they're just kind of good. And I like Pinson at the point. I think, Days is impactful. I think he will be a player within the SEC that's going to, be, troublesome matching up with. And Alabama, yeah, if those two guards are going to play that well, and then if you add Davidson to that equation and he plays at a high level and starts dunking on people's head like he did, then Alabama's interesting again. But I think Alabama lacking some inside presence, that's where they might find a wart or two moving forward.
Yeah, a little tough for me to like Bama when they're making 3-pointers at only a 31% clip. That's 284th in the country. Right. Bama needs to make threes. I mean, that's Nate Oates' style here. And It's amazing. Big win against Gonzaga. Just played absolutely fantastic. But since then, 5 losses, including the neutral Davidson, who I love. But the loss at Missouri, even a little more odd, 92 points to Missouri. I mean, Nate, you're not going to make threes and you're giving up 92 to Missouri? Okay, and by the way, Gus, teams shooting 67% from the free throw line against them. So they're getting some good luck here.
Yeah.
3-3, 12-6. I think Nate's taken a step back, but he's done a great job in Alabama.
Agreed. I think a little step back from last year, but I think he's the right guy there as well. A couple quickies, Mike. Florida holds on and holds the rope over Mississippi State. They desperately needed that win. Bucknell has completely fallen off a cliff from a couple of years ago where they were one of the Cinderella darlings. And then Creighton absolutely wipes the floor with St. John's. And I was kind of hoping that the St. John's team would get there this year, but I don't know if that's going to happen. And then Vermont is Vermonting, as always, and Ryan Davis continues to get numbers. Any thoughts on Florida, Bucknell's precipitous fall, Creighton, or Vermont Vermonting?
Loved Florida all year long. I am starting to really worry that the Mike White experience needs to end and they need to move on from him because they're very talented. And this is the type of SEC that Florida should be able to make a run in. Lost to Alabama at home, lost to Auburn away, lost to LSU. Okay, fine. Make me understand that those are probably 3 of the best teams besides Kentucky. And by the way, go out and see if you can pick off Kentucky at the end of the year at home. This is what I need you to do. They got Vandy, they got Mississippi, they got Tennessee. They did beat a good Mississippi State team. I thought that was solid. No Castleton inside. Fantastic. I think the key to this, and we talked about it with Eric Fawcett with them, is we need to get the freshman Koasi Reeves going. He's a scorer. He has the ability to put them on his back and make a couple threes. We need that. Appleby is good. He's streaky. Fleming is a solid 5th starter, but that's it. Myron Jones, DeRugi's okay, but I think Reeves gives him something. Him and Brandon McKissick have to lead this team. So that's my thoughts on them. Bucknell, listen, Bucknell's been fantastic every single year. This year certainly looks like they're taking a step back in the Patriot division. 0-7, 3-16. It's been rough.
Yeah.
I mean, that's Look, when's the last time Bucknell reeled off, lost Lehigh American and Colgate? Colgate, fine, but the other two,
Right.
please. Army, Navy, not particularly close. He just took a step back here. And after all the, and Nathan Davis in this league has been solid 20, 20, 20 every year. 5-7 last year, you throw it out the window. 3-16 this year. He'll have to come back next year and get things reset. That's fine. Creighton, I've lost a lot of money betting on Creighton. Early in the year, I doubted them. Then I got back on top of Creighton. They ended up losing a couple games there to me because they are one of the youngest teams in the country. John Nyatawa told me best recruiting class in Creighton history. Experience, only 1.34 years. That's 308th in the country. Minutes continuity, only 14% returning. That's 339th. So they have to find themselves. But Greg McDermott reminded us he can coach and they can play. Nice win over St. John's at home. Nice win over Villanova at home. They're going to be an issue and a problem. And they're a team that can get hot and make a Big East final at the end of the year.
Agreed that they have the talent there. And I think one of the other guys is Arthur Kalume. He's averaging over 10 points at home. And he is doing a lot of interesting and productive things on the wing for them. I think he's only going to grow as the season goes on. Mike, how about Alanis Williams and Wake Forest? He drags them to another ACC win over Georgia Tech. I feel like this was a little bit of a showdown between like two of the top players inside the ACC with Williams and Michael DeVoe. Williams already posted a triple-double this season. If he posts one inside ACC play, that would be something else. I think he's going to be a threat every single time he steps on the floor, and he makes this Wake team very tough. Like, his toughness is almost the characteristic of this Wake team. I'm pretty impressed by them. Mike, what do you take from DeVoe, Williams, and Wake Forest?
I love Wake Forest. I think they're one of the most underrated teams in the country. Steve Forbes, outstanding job.
Yep.
Went on the road. Beat Virginia on the road, no problem. Beat Virginia Tech on the road by 19, pounded them. That win back on December 4th is going to look better and better. And by the way, Gus, they played 2 games without Jake LaRavia, the big man transfer from Indiana State.
Yep.
David Williamson's tremendous. Alondis Williams makes big shot, transfer from Oklahoma. They are superior. They are efficient inside the arc. They play good defense. They're strong on the boards, and they play fast. Steve Forbes, excellent job. I can tell you right now, when I write my ACC tournament preview for whatever site I'm working for at that time, I can tell you right now my dark horse is going to be Wake Forest to win that tournament.
I don't think that's crazy at all. And plus, inside this weakened ACC this particular year, that one of those teams is going to sneak in and make some noise, and I think Wake is going to be that team for sure. All right, Mike, another couple quickies. Isiaih Mosely. Is this going to continue his assault on the scoring title with massive efficiency? He put up 24 points in 19 minutes over a win over Illinois State. He has a 43-point game already this year. He has a final last-second game winner, and he played Max Asmus to a duel when he put up 25 and 8 when they beat Oral Roberts 69-60. The dude is just one of the best mid-major guards in the country. He's incredible. I love looking up his box score, and then when you can catch a couple highlights of him, he just balls out. Totally impressed with him. And Mike, Rutgers gets the win at the Rack. You mentioned this earlier. I mean, I don't know who's tougher, like Florida State in overtime or Rutgers at the Rack, or maybe like St. Bonnie's in the second half earlier this season. And then our buddies Wyoming, minus EK, get the big win. Hunter Maldonado is now one of 3 players in the nation to average 15, 5, and 5 thus far this season. Yes, Alanis Williams, who we just mentioned, of Wake, is one of those other players, averaging 26 and 5, which is crazy. I think winning a game without EK, who could be the player of the year in the conference, is really impressive. And I think we need to say it. Drake Jeffries is just one of the best shooters in the country. So we have, Mosley, Rutgers, and then Wyoming.
Is there a little bit of Jordan Crawford in Isiaih Mosely? I just feel like he hits some big wing threes. He doesn't care. No. He can get hot and carry a team. He can be Gus, he's a nightmare in the opening round of the NCAA tournament. They that type of player. So excited. You called it a while ago. He's been great. Rutgers wins at the Rack. And listen, Peichel came out and said it is tough to win on the road. I get that. And that's been their struggles. But you know what? It's tough to win on the road for everyone. If you're going to take care of business and you're going to win the games at home like they do, they have a chance to make the tournament again. And that's all you can ask for. Sure, they struggled at Penn State, but they're still 5-2 in the Big Ten. So as much as they struggled, they lost at Illinois. Well, no shame there. They lost at Seton Hall. They lost at Penn State, but they did earn the tough win after being down big time against Maryland. They got that one off their back, and then they take care of business at Iowa. They are a phenomenal team at home in Piscataway. Love Rutgers, of course. It's great for us locally. And then Wyoming, really impressive. Graham Ike, you talked about it in the preview. He has been tremendous. He's a difference maker. I want that headband so I can save it on my wall. Hunter Maldonado is tremendous. He plays at his pace, and he's a great, fluid, Adrian Dantley-like scorer. I know I'm dating myself. Love this team. Wyoming is an issue. It's a problem. The Mountain West is for real.
Stacked. Totally stacked. All right, last two, and then we'll look forward to the weekend, Mike. UConn is kind of for real when Sanogo's healthy. I mean, this team is kind of scary. I love them. And then the question is, what can't David Roddy do? He's like part Cam Krutwig, part wrecking ball, part third-team All-American, part Jokic, part immovable object. But he's just a lovely hooper to watch. So I really like UConn, and you talked some Colorado State on the preview and got to get a little insight on David Roddy, but we've both admired him from afar for a long time.
Roddy the Body's been tremendous. There's been some issues with Colorado State covering. I've been a little too high on them. They're learning how to win. They're learning how to be the hunted instead of the hunter, but they're still tremendous, and Roddy is just a nightmare matchup across the board. And Connecticut, don't look now, but Danny Hurley is turning Connecticut into Houston North. That's the type of team he has. They're fourth from 2-point range in 2-point percentage allowed, 41%, doing a real nice job, and they make the three. So we have a defensive team in Connecticut that's big inside, that defends the interior and shoots the three. If that's not Houston, I don't know what is.
That's some high praise right there. All right, Mike, let's take a look at a couple of games that you're looking forward to this weekend. What are a couple of ones that you're looking at either wager-wise or just to watch-wise? What do you got cooking?
A couple games I'm looking forward to. We got the Boise-San Diego State game, which are two Mountain West teams that may not be at the top after what we've seen there, so that'll be real curious. Kentucky-Auburn we talked about. LSU-Tennessee. Strong-ass offer should get off the Schneider. Maybe Tennessee can finally start to make some noise here. Baylor against Oklahoma. Either we're going to say Baylor's back on board or Porter Moser is really doing an amazing job with the Sooners. Wake Forest is for real. I think they're going to beat North Carolina. I feel confident about that one.
You should.
And then Kansas at Kansas State. On the Sunday slate, love Marquette against Xavier. Memphis, who is right now struggling going to Tulsa, which is a team that always plays them tough.
Always.
And I think Purdue's going to open a can of whip ass on Northwestern after losing tonight to Indiana.
I think so, too. A couple of ones that I'm looking forward to inside the ACC. Florida State, Miami. Very intrigued by this Miami team. When we talked to Luke Neer, he was with me that this Miami backcourt could be an issue, and it's turning out to be exactly that. How about Missouri State at Loyola? We're going to have Mosley against the ranked Loyola Chicago team. I'm kind of down with that. And, of course, we want to take a look at UAB and Louisiana Tech, two best teams in conference, and probably the best player in conference with Junior Lofton. And we want to see if Trey Jemison can, match him defensively. So I'm down with that there. So there's plenty of things to look forward to this weekend, Mike. Where are people going to find what you do, how you do it, and where you do it? Where are we directing people these days to find your content?
Guys, I'm casting a wide net. Would love to see a full-time job at one of the sites. Still doing stuff at Action, doing some great stuff at 4for4. Great group of guys at 4for4 football. We're going to be doing some college basketball stuff, rolling it out as well. Possibly fantasy pros. Guys, you'll never know where I pop up. That's the key here. And of course, if you're in Washington, you go to the Caesar Sportsbook in Washington. I am live on there pretty much every week. I have a spot on Monumental Sports there where I'm up talking about my famous picks each week that I like. So really like doing that as well.
Excellent. And if you're intrigued by what Mike's doing, we're going to continue revisiting the podcast here, and I'll be over at Rave on Sports. They have a really cool app that you can interact with fans, and I'll be hosting a bunch of different games. So be a lookout on our Twitter feed for which games we're involved with there. Very kind people over at Rave on Sports. Awesome to reconnect here and talk some college hoops and toss it around a little bit. I hope that you have a great weekend, and hopefully we can catch up next week. And listeners out there, we hope that you have a great weekend too. Thanks for making us part of your college basketball rundown for the week. We totally appreciate it.
Gonzaga 36-30, minute left in the first half, just in time to see the second half.
Perfect. See you guys out there. Thanks everybody for listening. Cheers. Cilantro, Gazzalazia, Arigato.
I'm addicted to the appetite.